She-Hulk is one of the strongest characters in Marvel's lineup, and beyond that she's funny, entertaining, attractive, and brilliant. Jennifer Walters is not just physically strong, but is also a strong character when it comes to storytelling. She's someone you want to read about because she's just such a great character. So what weaknesses could someone so strong possibly have? Well, to be honest, she's usually pretty unstoppable. Her downfall is mainly other characters who are stronger than her, but she has a few other weaknesses, some lesser known. Join me in exploring the weaknesses of She-Hulk inside and out as we count down the top 10 She-Hulk weaknesses you never knew she had. Also, be sure to stick around till the end of this video where I will have some bonus content coming your way. And that's enough exposition. Let's get counting. Number 10. Identity crisis. When She-Hulk was stuck in her Hulk form, she originally thought it was due to being overexposed to radiation, but later found that this was not the case, and that her issue was more psychological. Truly, many of She-Hulk's battles have come from within when it comes to her feelings and her overall persona while in her Hulk-like form. For a while, she was even forced to view her feelings towards her obsession with being the She-Hulk as though she was addicted. And I mean, she kinda was. She takes a lot of pride from being She-Hulk, but it also tends to poison her view of herself when she is not in this form and is just plain old Jennifer Walters. While this might not be an obvious weakness in battle, Jennifer's emotions can affect her transformation and amount of control she has over her Hulk form, so it kinda is a weakness in battle. Sometimes. It's also just like a weakness when you're not in battle. You're like, who am I? Number 9. Writers. She-Hulk has had some of the best writers involved in her comics over the years, with probably one of the most iconic being John Byrne. But while readers of the sensational She-Hulk would praise Byrne's work during his run, Jennifer Walters herself would beg to differ with our opinions. She-Hulk is famous for breaking the fourth wall, making it cool before even Deadpool, after he was introduced in the comics in 1991. She-Hulk herself made her comic book debut in 1980. Jennifer would use this trope to complain about all of the terrible writing that was happening within her comics, how she was displeased with the way she was being portrayed, and would often call out tired comic book tropes that were constantly being repeated within the comic book world of storytelling. As She-Hulk saw it, John Byrne was one of the worst things to happen to her, and him writing this made him one of the best. Unfortunately, She-Hulk never came around to our point of view though, comically going so far as to kill Byrne as his run in the series came to an end in issue 50. Splat. So funny. Right on the sidewalk. Number 8. Her cousin. That's right, we're gonna talk about Bruce Banner. I know what you're thinking, but they have such a great relationship. What are you talking about, Amanda? Well, Jennifer Walters may love Bruce. It is sometimes her love of Bruce that ends up being her downfall in a fight. Jen is one of the few people that can talk Bruce down, and while this mostly works in the comics, sometimes it just results in her being badly beaten. Of course, She-Hulk is so strong that she can kinda just take a beating, but also being beaten to near death by the one that you love seems like a bad play all around. In World War Hulk, She-Hulk was expected to be the one who might be able to reach Bruce while he was threatening the lives of the heroes responsible for sending him away, and he thought responsible for killing his beloved Kara. However, this just resulted in her getting beaten to a pulp as Hulk was too far gone for her to bring Bruce back. So while her bond to Bruce can sometimes be a strength, it can also end up leaving She-Hulk weaker than when she started when it comes to being healthy and battle ready. She was like, come on, just like maybe don't be Hulk right now, and he was like, you're making me even more angry. Number 7. Sadness. Feels so weird to say this is a weakness. When Jennifer Walters wakes up after the events of the Second Civil War, she discovers that Bruce is gone, that he was deemed too great of a threat and taken out by one of Hawkeye's arrows. She mourns him. This fresh loss and the stress that comes with it causes her transformations to become uncontrollable. They are now tied to her grief, and when she gets swept up in thoughts of her cousin, she transforms. But she is no longer the green, fun-loving She-Hulk we once knew, but a less intellectual, gray She-Hulk, a monstrous-looking creature. She is able to use this form to her advantage, but changing has become a place of pain for Jen, causing her to often avoid superheroics and only transform to work on beating her own internal monsters, and occasionally to help those close to her, or simply to defend herself, or to smash things. Taking it out. Anger. Take that grief out in anger. It's alright though, 'cause she is her friend Hellcat. Number 6. Blood disease. When Jennifer contracted a blood disease, it appeared as if she might die. She ended up having to turn to the famous Spider-Man villain turned sometimes hero, Morbius the living vampire, to have it cured. Michael Morbius, being a famous hematologist, was able to cure Jennifer and save her life. And in fact, during the process, she also gained the ability to control her transformations. Later, she repaid Morbius's help with this deadly weakness when she represented him in court. She-Hulk is actually known for being otherwise immune to contracting most types of diseases or ailments, but her blood seems to be kind of a weak spot for her, perhaps because it is the source of her power. Number 5. Rage. For most Hulks, rage is a key ingredient, as Bruce Banner has famously warned us before when he says, "You wouldn't like me when I'm angry." For She-Hulk, this famously tends to not be an issue. Well, except for when it is. Whenever She-Hulk's radiation levels are askew, it creates an imbalance which can result in her going into a rage as a result of her transformation. Rage is a dangerous emotion for Jennifer because it puts blinders on her and often makes her unaware of her actions. She has ripped Vision in half, attacked her teammates, and destroyed an entire town as a result of being forced to give in to her rage. Rage for her equals bad. It's not a good correlation like Bruce Banner. Number 4. Red Hulks. While She-Hulk may be strong, the best way to take her down in a fight is by simply being stronger than her. And both Red Hulk and Red She-Hulk have proven they're capable of just that. Red Hulk seem to tap into that lack of control and wild abandon of rage more freely than their green counterparts. At one point, Betty Ross's Red She-Hulk, who was in full rage mode, even ended up killing She-Hulk. Well, at least we thought she did. She choked her and left her for dead. It turned out that She-Hulk was actually in stasis, and so she never really died. It just looked like she had died. Ha ha ha, comic book trickery. She-Hulk also would later kick Red She-Hulk's butt, so fortunately Red She-Hulk would not remain a weakness for Jennifer forever. Though the Red Hulks have given She-Hulk a fairly hard time before, so how do you beat a Hulk? Usually with another Hulk. Or maybe a Hulkbuster. Biggest weakness, people that can punch harder than her. 3. Nanites. For a while in the comics, Jennifer Walters was depowered as a result of being injected with spin tech. Tony Stark had her depowered, fearing that she would try to interfere after discovering the plot behind her cousin's disappearance. Fair enough, she probably would've. Stuck in her human form, Jennifer Walters was reduced to the strength of an average human. Well, an average human who lives, presumably. As She-Hulk becomes stronger from training, meaning Jennifer herself is actually quite a gym enthusiast. Her strength equals She-Hulk's strength, so. And no longer having access to her powers, she did the only thing she could think of, took legal action against Stark. In the end, her powers were returned to her after running into an alternate version of herself whose Earth didn't have superpowers but who gained powers after being transported to Earth 616. It's a long story. Moving through the same transporter device granted She-Hulk her powers again, resetting her and curing her of the unwanted spin tech. Get that out of here. Whew. Shouldn't have to go live on a depowered Earth. Be awkward. Number 2. Fear. For a while, fear becomes She-Hulk's trigger, meaning that whenever she gets afraid, it causes her to change. This has been a recurring issue for Jen and a weakness in terms of her actually being able to keep control over herself and not lash out at her teammates. When we're talking about Hulks, a lot of the weaknesses we're really talking about here are a lack of control. Typical werewolf type story or Jekyll and Hyde story. Scarlet Witch's influence caused her to rage and caused her to almost kill Captain America and tear Vision in half. Not truly the real Vision, but of course She-Hulk did not know that at the time. Afraid of what she was capable of, She-Hulk went into hiding. But during the Search for She-Hulk storyline, her greatest fears become reality as we see her lose control again and destroy the entire town of Bone, Idaho. Poor Bone, Idaho. Number 1. Radiation. Wait, doesn't radiation give her strength though? Well, it does, but that doesn't mean that it can't mess her up. Her increased exposure to radiation in a SHIELD helicarrier was thought to be the cause of her being unable to shift back into her human form. It was later revealed that this wasn't really the case, but then later on, after being exposed to the radioactive Jack of Hearts, she began to lose control of her cool. She became more like her cousin, rage-fueled and uncontrollable. One of the best things about She-Hulk normally that makes her so powerful is her ability to remain level-headed while hulked out. And losing this ability turned her into a less useful and more dangerous loose cannon. So basically, radiation can power her up, but too much can also turn her berserk, so it's like a strength and a weakness. What? Thanks so much for watching, Nerd Squad. I hope you enjoyed this list. Truly, it seems like emotions are often She-Hulk's greatest weakness, which is interesting because for her cousin Bruce, I would argue they're sometimes his greatest strength. But I mean, other than internal weaknesses, She-Hulk is pretty invincible. Are there any lesser known weaknesses that you feel like we missed? Do you feel like emotions in the comic book world are often presented as a strength or as a weakness? Jedi or Sith? That's the way I should have done that, because weakness would be Jedi. Strength would be Sith. Let us know your thoughts and feels in the comments below. And speaking of comments, it's time to turn to some comments from one of our latest videos, Top 10 Starfire Fanships. Delfred Marshall says, Martian Manhunter? She'd make him feel more human since he'd be more accepted. Either her or Hawkgirl. Duh, I like this suggestion. I think Martian Manhunter and Starfire could be super cute together. 10 points to Gryffindor, if you're a Gryffindor. Not 10 points to whatever house you from. American Pisa suggests, never apologize, Amanda. Apologizing shows weakness. Never show weakness. Stick to your beliefs. I have spoken. Thank you for this. I will hold my head up high and not apologize for my own views. Well, except when the Canadian in me rears its head. then I might have to apologize. Sorry. Cameron Payne asks, has Amanda McKnight ever cosplayed Mayday Parker? I have not. I have a really lazy MJ cosplay for my chill day at cons, but Mayday would be a really fun one to do. I could finally get a spider suit. I will add it to my list of projects. Thank you for the suggestion. And that's all the time we have for comments today. Be sure to comment below for a chance to have your words featured in a future video. And remember to like, sub, share, and ring our bell on the way down there. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you, as always, to stay nerdy, YouTube. I've spoken.